Chapter 5. A Foolish Mistake. It began to rain and did not stop for 2 months. This was the rainy season. I had been on the island for a whole year. I could not believe that I was still alive and wondered what would happen to me. After the rainy season, I went out and found some plants that had thin branches, and I used the branches to make some baskets. This made it much easier to transport my food and other useful things. Then I began to think about making a pot. I searched the island for clay. I made some pots and dried them in the sun, but they fell apart when I tried to cook in them. Then I discovered that one of the pieces, which had fallen in the fire, became very hard. I made a pot and made a hot fire all around it. It became very hard, and I was able to make soup in it. After that, I made more baskets and pots. I decided to see the rest of the island. I crossed to the other side, and there I could see land. It was far away, and it made me curious. I thought it might be part of America. That side of the island was very pleasant, and I thought that I would have more chance of seeing a ship there, too. There were a lot of turtles and birds on the beach, but I did not think about going to live there. I liked my home on the other side of the island, and did not want to do all that work again to build a new home. I caught a parrot, and when I returned home, I spent about a week making a cage for it. I wanted to teach it to speak, but this took more than 2 years. Sometimes I felt that I was in a prison. I was locked up by the sea and could never escape. I never saw or spoke to another person. Sometimes I cried like a child. Then I would look around at my home. I thought how lucky I was to have everything I needed. I had clothes and food and shelter from the sun and the rain. I was healthy and safe and always busy. Thinking about this made me happier again. I spent a lot of time making a large shelf for my cave. I found a big tree and chopped it down. This took 3 days. Then I chopped off the branches. This took another 2 days. After that, I chopped the wood away from one side and then from the other side. This took more than 1 month. Altogether, it took 42 days. In England, 2 men with a good saw could have made 6 of these shelves from that tree in half a day. I also spent a lot of time looking after my corn and rice crops. I had to protect them from wild animals and birds, so I made a fence around them. I shot some of the birds and hung them up near the corn. After that, all the other birds stayed away. I used one of the old swords I had taken from the ship, cut down the corn when it was ready. I was very proud of my corn and rice, and worked hard to increase my crops. A few years later, I would have enough corn to make bread. I had to find a way to grind the corn into flour, but the rocks on the island were not hard enough. I finally discovered that a very hard piece of wood would do. I used some cloth to separate the meal from the husks. Not having an oven, I made some square pots with lids and covered them with hot ashes. This baked the dough, and I had bread. I made my cave bigger again to hold the corn and flour so that I could make bread whenever I needed to. I sometimes wondered how I could get to the land which was visible from the other side of the island. I went to the ship's boat that was blown onto the beach in the shipwreck. However, I could not get it to the water. It was too heavy. I tried many different ways of doing it, but none of them were successful. Sometimes I wasted a lot of time doing foolish things. I tried to make a canoe from a tree trunk. I chopped down a huge tree, which took me 34 days. It took a month to shape it into a boat and another 3 months to make a hollow. After finishing it, I was pleased to see that it was large enough to carry 20 men. I could easily take all my things with me. The canoe was only 100 meters from the water, but I could not move it. It was too heavy. I thought I could dig a canal to the boat. I later calculated that it would take 10 years to dig this canal. This was too long, so I stopped. What a waste of time, I thought. I should have thought of this before I started.